This is preparing for the ACT 2021-2022, the reading passage number 4. If you know which question you want to go over, you can jump ahead in the progress bar to that particular question. Now, right off the bat, this is an informational passage. The last passage is always informational, so it always kind of deals with the natural sciences. And it says that the title is Summer World, a Season of Bounty. So we're probably talking about harvesting or weather or plants of some sort just based on the title. And it's very important that you at least take a glance at the title, and that can sometimes help frame what it is that you are reading. So 31. The fourth passage marks a shift in the focus of the passage. So here we've got paragraph 4 right here. And the first sentence is very key. It says, some desert animals similarly store water. So here it talks about the frog from northern Australia, how it fills up and expands its urinary bladder. Now, the question is, all right, this is a transition, a shift away. So if we look above, we can see that we talk about the cactus has no leaves, but its stem is green and can photosynthesize and produce nutrients as well as store water. So up here, we're talking about a plant, and down here, we're talking about an animal. And in 31, what I've done is I've focused on the contrasts. In letter A, it says we go from above ground to below ground. Letter B, talk about animals that don't go dormant to animals that do go dormant. Letter C, we go from plants to animals. And letter D, we go from talking about the Negev to the Australian deserts. So it's important to be able to break down some of these questions so that you can recognize what the transition or what the contrasts are. So here we can clearly see that we're going from plants to animals in answer C. So that's why that is the answer. 32. Based on the passage, the author's use of the words measuring, now that word shows up in line number 12. And it says it most nearly describes the way that some desert plants. Now what I've done is I've highlighted each answer in talking about sort of the general gist of the answer, or specific characteristics that might pop out that help you recognize what the correct answer is. Roots that are extremely sensitive to moisture, or delaying seed germination, visibly more vigorous, or how many inches of rain. So if we read the passage, it says, some achieve this balance on a tightrope by measuring rainfall. Well, that in and of itself doesn't have much. So sometimes what you have to do is you have to read either the sentence before or the sentence after it. So I'm going to read the sentence after it. They have chemicals in their seeds that inhibit germination, and a minimum amount of rain is required before they are leached out. Now, it says, now if you notice, the word germination shows up right here. And again, this is another example of the English test will oftentimes use a different word. So instead of using, let's see, different color. So here in the answer, they use the word delay, whereas in the passage, it says inhibit. But it's kind of the same idea of slowing down, minimizing it, holding it back. And so that's why we're talking about seed germination, even though they changed the word to try and mess you up, but it was talking about germination. Because letter F had it talk about roots, but we're not talking about roots, we're talking about seeds. So that's the reason why letter F is not the answer. Letter H, visibly more vigorous, doesn't say anything about how vigorous they look after a rainfall. And letter J, it doesn't say anything about how many inches of rain. So that's why letter G is the best answer. Number 33. Which of the following statements best summarizes the process by which the frog Cyclorama placidalpha platycephala. Good thing we're reading this, so we don't need to pronounce it. But this is one of those phrases that only shows up once. And so if you can locate it, that means you can just jump right to it. So here it is. Here it is in this fourth paragraph where it transitions. And so it says, which best summarizes the processes by which the frog survives? So what does it say? It fills up and greatly expands its urinary bladder to use as a water bag before burying itself in the soil, where it spends most of the year waiting for the next rain. So, what does it do? It buries itself. That's true. But that happens, this shows up here in letter D and in letter A. So if you just go off that, well, you can also say that's true in letter C. And then you can also say that for letter B. So just saying that it buries itself, well, that's not enough. So what else can we say? Well, it expands its urinary bladder. Well, it doesn't ever use the word bladder or urinary, so that's not going to help. But it does say it spends most of the year waiting for the next rain. And so that's kind of the key for it right there, is emerging at the next rain. That's when it comes out. Waiting for the next rain, right there. So that right there is our clue for us to say that, all right, that's why answer A is the best answer of the options that we have. So 34. Based on the passage, which of the following plants and animals employ a communal strategy to survive in the desert? So what we have is we have three different options. So I've highlighted them in different colors. We've got the cactus, the frog, and the ants. So they say which one employs a communal strategy. So that is ones that work together. Now, right here, if I focus on this fourth paragraph where we talk about the cactus, it talks about it strictly in the singular. There's no mention ever of cacti growing together. So we can probably cross that one off. So cross off letter G and H. So now, what about the cactus? Well, here's the cactus down here. So here we've got, it mentions cacti in the plural, but it says it has a shallow root system, extend in all directions, can soak up to 200 gallons of water. The trunk is pleated, the cactus has no leaves, but it still only mentions it in the singular. Now, if we jump down to honeypot ants, it says ants typically feed each other. That right there is a communal strategy. They all work together as a community. So that's why the answer is letter J. Number 35. The passage most strongly suggests that compared to the frog, the honeypot ants are unique in that they can store water inside their bodies. No, the frog does that. Live in Australian deserts? No, the frog does that as well. Go dormant during dry times? Well, they don't seem to mention, no, wait a minute, dry times, that's the frog that does that. The only thing that the ants do that's unique, that the frog doesn't do, is that they combine water storage with energy storage. Okay? And that phrase is right here. Yeah, right there. All the others, they're all descriptions of things that the frog does. Number 36. Here we're looking at lines 7 through 11. So here we've got from right here. So it says the plant's challenge is to be quick enough to respond to rain so they can produce their seeds before the earth dries up again, while not jumping the gun to start growth until there's enough water for them to grow to maturity. So they want to be sure there's enough water in order to germinate their seeds, but they want to be sure there's enough of it. They don't want to wait too long, otherwise it'll dry up again. So, now they all talk about desert plants. So if I start from the bottom, the seeds are designed to wait years to the right conditions for growth. Nope. The plants are only going to release at the right time. They're not just going to send out their seeds and let them sit there. Letter H, dry conditions require the seeds to start germination prior to the arrival of rain. Nope. The plants wait until after it's rained to start the germination. Letter F, annual plants in deserts make seeds during dry conditions, so the seeds will be ready. Well, it doesn't say anything about now. So this is a good example of where we have two answers that might be both correct, but we have to find the better one. So looking at letter F, annual plants survive in deserts by making seeds swiftly when the conditions are right. Now, the key thing here is that they can produce their seeds before the earth dries up again. So they don't make their seeds until the rain happens. So that's why the answer is letter F. The seeds are not produced until the rain happens. 37. Based on the passage, it might be reasonably inferred that the scarring some seeds require before germination is accomplished through scarring. That's another unique word, and I've highlighted it right here. And so usually you want to locate that key word and then look around it to see where that information is that you can extract. So it says, others have seed coats that must be mechanically scarred to permit sufficient wetting for germination, and the scarring happens only when they are subject to flash floods in the riverbeds where they grow. So, is accomplished through, and it happens only when they are subjected to flash floods. So, that right here is one of the reasons why letter D is the right answer, because it talks about flash floods. No mention of chemicals. No mention of internal tension, like it's a spring and it's going to pop out from the outside. And it doesn't talk about drying either. All right. So, number 38. It says, in line 26, the word extent most nearly means, so let's find line 26. It says, however, when the sepals are sufficiently wetted and the tension increases to such an extent that the lock mechanism snaps and the capsule explodes and releases the seeds. So here's the word. And so often what I'll say is, all right, take out each word. Take out the word extent and try each of these other words. So let's try F. When the sepals are sufficiently wetted and the tension increases to such a length, and that doesn't sound right. When the sepals are sufficiently wetted and the tension increased to such a degree, yeah, that sounds like it works. Letter H. When the sepals are sufficiently wetted and the tension increases to such a reach, no, that doesn't sound right. When the sepals are sufficiently wetted and the tension increases to such a boundary, nah. To such a degree. That's the one word that kind of sounds right. The other three, if I replace each one and talk it out, doesn't sound right. 39. According to the passage, which of the following actions did the people in the Negev desert take in order to farm there? So, Negev, that's another unique place. So, where is that? All right. So down here, we've got mention of the Negev desert. And so it says, which actions did people take in order to farm there? And so here, we want to focus on the word farmers. They mastered harnessing the flash floods that rushed down the gullies, not only by making terraces, but also by building large cisterns. So, there's the key word right there. They built terraces to catch the flowing water. So that's why letter C is the answer. They did mention gullies. The word gullies does show up here. The problem is, it says they widened them. Well, it doesn't say they widened them, they're there. So that's why letter B is not the answer. And A and D, they don't talk about plowing the soil or constructing aqueducts. And then finally, number 40, based on the passage, the pleats in the body of the cactus. So pleats is up here. It says the trunk is pleated like an accordion and can swell to store tons of water that can last the plant for a year. And so the key word here is it can swell. Well, another word for swell is to expand. And so it can store water. So that's the key right there for storing water. And so that's why the answer is letter G. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check all the other videos we have on this playlist.